It is good to be with you here this morning, telling you about the good news of Jesus. Now, for those of us who are listening to the narrative this morning, the good news of Jesus, I think, is put on shaky ground. I don't know about you, but this walking on water business is something that just boggles my mind. It is a class in seminary that we no longer take. In fact, the only seminarian, if you would ever call him a seminarian, was Peter, who took Walking on Water 101 and he failed miserably. Thankfully, he had a gracious teacher who pulled him up by his bootstraps, so to speak, and helped him see the reality of what this is about. You know, Mark G. Vitalis Hoffman, Glafteller, Glaffeller, professor of biblical studies at United Lutheran Seminary in Gettysburg, Pennsylvania, writes, I have heard quite a few sermons on this text that basically come down to a commendation of Peter's faith for getting out of the boat and walking on the water. The problem, as it is usually put, is that he takes his eyes off of Jesus and his faith falters. But Jesus is there to save him. So the sermon concludes, be courageous, get out of the boat, but keep your focus on Jesus. You know, I can't tell you how many times I have heard the same sermon. Get out of the boat, get out of the church, go into the world, find that person who needs to hear the good news of Jesus Christ and tell them about how to follow him and to be courageous, to do all these things. But the reality of it is I don't know, as I've mentioned just briefly a few minutes ago, of how many of you have walked on water. I definitely haven't. So let's listen to how Mark unpacks this for us. Okay, that may be good encouragement for some people to put their faith into action, but it kind of misses the point of the story. After all, when they get back in the boat, the other disciples don't congratulate Peter for doing pretty well and wishing him better luck next time. The real hero in the story is Jesus, whom the disciples worship for the first time in Matthew as the Son of God. This is one of the scriptures that I think should be held during the time of Epiphany. Epiphany is a time where we see that Jesus is revealed truly as the Son of God. And this is one of those miraculous narratives that we get in the Gospel of Matthew that reveal who Jesus is. Jesus is the Son of God. And because of this, we're able to garner a greater faith through this story. Now, for those of us who have lived through the postmodern era, and we are now to the supermodern era, we think, well, okay, how does this work? We get thinking about physics and perhaps even chemistry and water displacement and how could Jesus have walked on water, and we do calculations for some of us trying to prove that Jesus actually indeed walked on water and that it was capable that Peter was able to do the same thing. But again, that's not what this text is about. It's not actually proving about Jesus walking on water or not. It's about the disciples' understanding of who Jesus is as the Son of God, the Messiah, the one who has come to us in our fear, When we have gathered together in a boat that is rocking back and forth with lightning striking around us in a very real and dire situation, Jesus walks out to us in our fear and our trembling. This is the comfort and the assurance that we get from this gospel text. It is one that tells us that things are going to be okay. That Jesus is willing to walk out towards us. The disciples don't understand what is going on in this narrative. They see the figure of Jesus walking across the water. I like to imagine with mist coming up or fog coming up off the Sea of Galilee after a turbulent storm, and the fear that comes in their minds as they seemingly see a ghost. Jesus is there not as a ghost, not as an incorporeal being, but there with them in body and in blood, assuring them that everything will be okay. During this time of COVID-19, we need those assurances. We need to hear that God is willing to walk out to us. Walk out to us in our doubt, in our despair, in our struggles. It's hard to say that when we know that over 150,000 Americans have lost their lives. It's hard to say that when we know that even more have lost their lives around the world. That the disease that attacks not only the lungs, but we now know the heart and even the way our blood coagulates. That many of us are living in fear right now. But it is our opportunity right now to look to the one who is the Son of God, bringing us comfort and assurance when the waves chop, when the lightning strikes, when the thunder rolls, when our tiny ship, which is our lives, is caught on the sea of life, with hills and valleys, tossing us about like a little boat in the bathtub of a child. God is here to provide us comfort and assurance. Now, when I say God brings us comfort and assurance, it doesn't mean that everything is going to be hunky-dory. It doesn't mean that if we believe with all our heart and mind and soul and spirit, that we will be immune from this deadly disease. But what it does mean is that Jesus will be alongside us, will be with us during our time, and to welcome us home if and when God calls us. In this understanding, we know that we can find hope. Hope in the midst of despair, hope in the midst of fear, hope in the midst of a time where we need the grace and love of God to help us, to guide us, to help us take that next step. That step which is to follow Jesus and to worship Him as the Son of God. Amen.